7. When I started Max, it was at Max 6. And what I really liked and was intimidated by from Max is that you start a new, when in Max 6, when you started a new, what's called a patcher, it was this. And I was like, all right, I see you, I see you. Software with absolutely no interface. All right. I had no idea what to do, and then I went to school to learn how to use it because I was like, this thing could do everything, and I don't know how to even do it. Luckily for us, they've now have gone back to doing a toolbar, and I'm going to show you how to do a couple of things here, okay? So Max is boxes and lines. You connect them. It flows from the top down and from the right to the left, all right? And here are the things you have. You have objects, which are the different, these are different encapsulated bits of code, just like we have blueprint nodes, okay? So there it's empty, but if I start writing something, it would be like, I want to do an audio to an analog to digital conversion, right? And that would be, it's an object called EasyADC, and that looks like a microphone, right? And then I can actually like bring in my audio source and stuff like that. So there we go. So this is a fun tool to start off with. We have an object. Then we have messages. Messages are cool because you can send messages, but you can also receive messages. These things are called inlets and outlets. See this one? It's red. If I want to send data through, I put it in the red side. If I just want to dump data out and just read stuff, I can put it right there. And I'm going to take this audio and I'm going to say I want to look at the peak amplitude. And I want to look at it, I don't know, like every 33 seconds. And let's see what that does. Just do a little left channel there, and let's turn it on. And now I'm getting audio. Right, so this is converting an analog to digital conversion that's then turning that to numbers between 0 and 1. All right, and this can we can say there's a multi-slider object, and I have now a little graph. I'm going to do Control-I to bring up my information, and down here I say instead give me a line scroll, drag it out, and then connect it, and now I'm seeing my audio. Cool? So there's all sorts of interfaces, all sorts of UI things that makes it really fun to use. Like right now you can see that it's going from -1 to 1, and I want it to maybe pare this down to 0 to 1. Great. So now this is from 0 to 1, and I can see my audio as a value, a float value.
Is there a way to print to separately take only the graph and then print it somewhere else?
Yeah, totally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean anything can kind of be anything in Max. It's really it was a great piece of software for me to use because it kind of generally like lets you do this whole synesthesia thing where audio is video and video is audio and all that kind of stuff. And it's a mindset that kind of changed the way I approach Unreal. I oftentimes use Unreal like it's Max, which is a unique approach to it.
It's like MATLAB, but easy.
Very much like MATLAB.
Yeah.
And easy things are easy, but hard things are incredibly difficult. All right. So right now we have this data, and it would be cool to have audio reactive things inside of Unreal, and I'd love to be able to connect our data that we're getting to Unreal. So we're going to do that over a network protocol. I'm going to do it on my local host. I'm going to do it on my computer, so from two pieces of software. But I'm going to do it over UDP. UDP is contrasting from TCP, right? So TCP is not lossy, a little bit slower, but it's how you'd send pixels across, like if I was to send video over the internet. But we're doing UDP, which is a lossy internet protocol. Incredibly fast, and it's how all show control is done. Okay, it's how concerts are done, it's how the videos are started at Times Square, it's how all this stuff is done. And a form of UDP that's been packaged nicely is called Open Sound Control. And Open Sound Control was basically built for Macs. Okay, so in the 70s we had MIDI, Everyone's seen MIDI before or understands the idea of MIDI. Like these are all MIDI cables. MIDI is used for audio, and it's sending values of 0 to 127 on different channels, and it's how you can do a lot of synthesizer stuff. In the 90s, the people who were doing audio said, okay, let's move away from this bulky MIDI. It's heavy. Let's be more future thinking, and they created OSC, thinking that all of like the big like the big consoles and all the instruments would all be connected over Ethernet or Wi-Fi. The funny thing is that it never stuck for audio. If you know digital audio workstations, I think only Logic actually uses OSC. All the other ones still just use MIDI. But then the VJ software all took OSC and they ran with it. So it's built into Macs, and I want to show that. Okay, so we have a new object, and it's going to be UDP send. All right, finish the word for me. And then I want to use my local host, which is either 127.0.0.1 or otherwise known as localhost. And then I'm going to choose a port. A port is arbitrary, kind of. I mean, it's like usually a 3 to 5 digit number. It just has to match on both sides. In general, we have us creative technologists have around 7,000 and 9,000 reserved for us. All right, so this is for our experimentation. You can't have two things sitting on the same port. But like, if you ever use some sort of like TCP, UDP sniffing kind of software, you can see that you have hundreds of ports in use right now by all the software you have open. It's how Adobe phones home on you. It's how Max knows that you're have a license or not. I'm going to choose 8,000. And then down here, unconnected, I'm going to say UDP receive. And then also 8,000. All right, I'm going to do a message down here so I can see my message. And then I'm going to use some of these other things we have. Like we have a toggle, which is on and off. We have what's called a bang, which is just sending a value over and over again. And we have numbers. And I'm going to connect them in. I'll just use those two for right now. And we'll see that we have 1 and 0, right, being sent. So I'm sending this over my local network. It's not very compelling right now, but I'll make it a little bit more compelling in a second, right? So we're sending values from myself to myself. Not as impressive right now as it could be. So what I've done and what I've already sent you guys is our first plugin for Unreal. It's done by this guy named Monsieur Gustave. And does anyone know what character what movie that character is from? It's not important, but just if anyone, it's the Grand Budapest Hotel. Yeah. Anyway, so if I were to want this plugin, I could go to the branch, and it says, you have to have different versions for different kinds. Right now we're in the master because we're using 4.17 or 4.18, or now most recently 4.19. I don't know if you guys saw over the weekend, they now have a custom engine build for Magic Leap because Unreal and Magic Leap have partnered together. So that's super exciting. I don't have a dev kit, so if anyone has one. Anyway, so what I've done is, so what you do is you take these, it shows you how to do it. You basically make a C++ project, make a plugins folder, put it in there, and then once you just double click the project, it opens up, it compiles it for you. It's not too complicated, but I went ahead and did it for you to get started. So now that you have, so I put it in your Slack channel. So if you go to your demos, you see that I have both for Mac and Windows 4.17 and 4.18. So just take this, download it, and unzip it into your, you make a plugins folder, and then in your project, and then you put this in there when it's unzipped. I always have a project called a compiler for each of I do a lot of plugins, so I always make one for each engine version. And I'm just going to use this compiler 4.17 for right now. But just to show you, what I have here is a plugins folder that I made myself, and then I brought in OSC. Okay? So I'm just going to open it up. And this is where we turn our normal class into Hogwarts. So you have to check two things first. Make sure that it's enabled, and then look at the settings for it. All right, nice new little level. All right. So up here, we can look at, first of all, the plugins, and see that down here, in this project only, we have OSC enabled. I can also install it to my engine and then it'll be available for all my projects. But for right now, we'll just do it in this one project. If you want to put in your engine, that's the best way. If you have a friend working in a Mac and a friend working in a PC, or that's the easiest way for you guys to both be using OSC for your project and not having a plugins folder that conflicts, because the Windows and the Mac builds are different of the plugin. So it's enabled. If we go back to our project settings, there we go. We can go down the very bottom. We see there are some settings for OSC, and it's receiving on port 8000, which is what we just used in Macs, and then it can also send. And you remember that number I used before, 127.0.0.1. That's our local host. We can send it to ourselves on 8001. We don't want to send it to the same port we're receiving because it'll block it. All right. So let's see Max drive Unreal. I am going to create a blueprint. And it's going to be called BP Max Light. And as I build this blueprint, I want to be able to see it happening in real time. So I'll put it out in the world and open it up over here on the side. Okay? And what do I want to add to it? I want to drive a light. Point light. There we go. And just so I can see stuff in my world, I'm going to bring in a cube just over to the side so I know that my light is here next to the cube. All right, very, very cool. This is all straightforward. We've done this before. But now what I'm going to do is, because I have this plugin enabled, I actually have an OSC component as well. OSC receiver. And this OSC receiver, we want to just make an event for whenever it receives OSC, trigger something, okay? So this is just like on actor overlap or something like that. This is just an event. We hit this button, and it creates a node for us. Right here underneath event, actor overlap, and a tick and stuff. And now I mentioned that OSC is an internet protocol. If I'm just sending numbers, what if I'm sending like a whole bunch of values? I'm monitoring heart rate and audio levels and all this kind of stuff. How is it not getting confused? Well, you separate out different data, and we'll do it on the Mac side, on a URL just like it was because it's an internet protocol. So instead of just sending this 220, I would want to send it on a URL. And so this 220 now is going to be a light. You pass variables through with a $sign. So this is $1. And then we'll see that the value is there. It's on a channel. Right? And then I want to send this 1 or a 0. I'm going to call this one button. And send it in. And so now I have two things, right? Button's doing its thing, light's doing its thing, and they can be separated out. All right? So it's I'm just packaging it to send it, and then I'm going to bring it out and separate it back out in here. So we have execution pin right here. That's what's sending out the event. And then we have an address. That's what we just did over here. And then we have all the data that comes out of here. So let's go ahead and say the address equals light. Remember / first. And we're going to make an if statement. Okay? This, I doubt you can see it, but this is red right here. That's a Boolean. So we're saying if it's on the light channel, we're going to send it out. Okay? The if statement inside of Unreal is called a branch. So if it's true, send data. We're going to take a point light, and we want it to set intensity. And there we see that intensity is a float number. There we go. And so we're going to take this data. This data is called a struct. It's a bunch of different kinds of things. It could be a string, it could be booleans, it could be floats, it could be integers. What we want to do is we want to take a float, right? So I'm going to, the way you take it off the stack, if a stack of data is coming through, you pop off the top, right? You're going to pop it, and then when we put data back in, we're going to push it in. So we're going to say pop a float, and that's right there. So we're doing a couple things. We're dividing up by channel. That gives us an if statement. So it can be sending events constantly, but it'll only send data through if it's on that channel, and then that channel will be related to this float number right here. Basically, it'll send this, and this intensity will kind of suck that float value up. Okay? Yeah.
Take everywhere. That's an array, right? Float. Or is that a big float?
That's only one float. It's only taking the float. So when set intensity gets executed, then it's pulling the float that's associated with that channel.
Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of abstract, but when it works, it's great. So basically, what we're going to do is with Max, take this intensity of this light and be able to slide it up and down. Okay. One thing I'm going to do right now, though, is also tell you that this doesn't happen in executables, but when you're playing in the editor, Unreal knows that it uses a lot of resources on your computer. So whenever it's not the foreground application, whenever it's not the thing you're actually using, it slows itself down. It uses less CPU. It's a feature of the engine. But what that does, it makes rendering very choppy, and we're going to have Max in the front. And so we want it to be smooth so we can see Max working. So just a little secret is if you go to your editor settings, there's a performance tab, and it's called Use Less CPU in Background. I've already turned that off because I've already made this project. You'll notice when it's choppy, like, oh, it's choppy, and you just tell me, and I'll say, oh, it's the CPU thing. All right, so let's just get going. We have a light. And let's bring over Max. So hopefully, it's working. It's not right now. That's fine. I know why. It's because we already have the port bound right here inside of there we go. So now let's go ahead and stop, and let's start again. Look over at our light. Great. So now we're driving this light right here. Now what's really fun about using Max as kind of like your in-between is that I can keep Unreal running. And I don't have to, if I just do things in Max, Max doesn't have to compile. So let's say we want to not just drive this number with a mouse click, but we want this audio to be our light source. Right? The problem is lights are like 5,000, 10,000 values, and our audio is going from 0 to 1. So we just need to scale, right? So in Max, scale is scale. We're going to scale from 0. We're going to scale the values of 0 and 1 to 0 and 5,000. All while Unreal is still rendering. So take this thing, bring it over here, and then do it over here, and now we have a scaled value, right? So now we have audio reactive Max, or audio reactive Unreal. It's now ready to be more of an interactive experiential installation tool. From my old VJ days, I know that whenever you do audio reactivity, you want it to hit hard, and then you want it to trail off a little bit. And that's just a smoothing function, which is called slide in Max. So I want slide. I want the hit to hit at 1 millisecond, but I want it to take 15 milliseconds to trail off. Right? Unreal's still rendering. And I want to see what that looks like. And of course, this is, we'll do it before the scale. How about that? Let's drag in. Let's delete, and that's fine. I'm just going to take it to slide first, and then scale. Great. So that's the old VJ trick. It's a quick onset, and now we have like our beats going. The microphone's actually right there. All right. So now we have the voice of God. You know. So so cool. We're using Max. You don't have to use Max. You go directly to Max. But this is. You can see how this really opens up what you're doing inside the game engine, and you can use game engines for. In fact, that's how I learned Unity, was VJing in Unity, because it was just getting better lights and shadows. I was like, well, this is better to use than other things, and better than just video. Cool, but you know, we're for installation. Maybe we don't want to be, you know, on the computer ourselves. We want to be controlling this thing from I don't know, our phone. All right. So what I'm going to show you now is a thing called Touch OSC, so that we can, over a Wi-Fi network, send values to Max and Unreal from our phone. So Touch OSC is for Android and iOS, and it's $6. I think it's completely worth it. It makes everything, all my installations are running from this. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to show my phone. All right. Make sure my phone's on the right network. It is. I even have a router in my backpack. I take routers with me all the time. Be on your own little network, and that way you don't have to worry about it. Especially how flaky the NYU network is. So now I should be able to. Come on. It might be maybe just like too far. It's just too far. Give it a second. Like I probably could open up the door and it would help the reception. A nice little pause in the middle of the screen recording. Let's try again. There we go. It worked. Cool. So, Touch OSC is yeah, like $6. You want to just get it? It's $6, right? Anyway, so Touch OSC is sending OSC over the Wi-Fi, just like Max just did it to Unreal. And what's cool about Touch OSC is that it's a mobile app that has a editor with a super easy interface. All right, we're gonna make it for my 6S. There you go. And then what do I want? Well, I'm going to make a button, push button, right? And this is so simple, it even only has like 8 colors you can use. That's how simple this software is, right? It's a real challenge to try to make something that looks nice in this. Oops, what happened to you guy? Right? So we got our button. What is this over here? We see that it automatically gives us these URLs, right? This is the network protocol. I'm going to simplify it a little bit for myself, and I'm just going to send on the channel bill, right? Range from 0 to 1. When I press this button, it's going to be 1, and then it'll go back to a 0. And then I also want to have some sliders. So let's go horizontal sliders, and there we go. App done. The easiest app you ever created, right? I would then take my my cable, which I forgot today, my lightning bolt cable, and then you go to sync, and then we would go to our layout. I have to leave it open so that I can get the Wi-Fi. Thanks. And then we go to add, and then there it sees that app I just made, right? And I can grab it from there. Oh, wow. It usually doesn't work. So I just was going to assume it didn't work. But it worked that time. Okay, so it grabbed an untitled app that I just made. All right, so if I say done, that's the thing I just made, right? I'm not really ready for it yet because I didn't actually give a name for this channel. But isn't that the quickest, iOS development you've ever seen? It's really great. We're going to send this on Fred. And now we'll sync. Maybe I'll give it a name. Save as. And we'll save this as Merida VR. Cool. And then when I try syncing again, we'll go over here. We'll go over here. Add. There I am. Bring it on. Boom. There is Narrative VR. Great. And so I need to see what so I'm done with this editor. That's it. Done with it. It's a free editor. I pay for the app. Then I just need to put in my my IP address of my computer. Hold down Alt and click this little sign right here, and I can see that my IP address is 192.168.1.13. I already put it in to make sure that it was working, so I have the number in here. Right? I put it in here, and then I can choose which ports. Doesn't matter what ports I use. I just need to make sure that they match. Right? So I'm sending on. Oh, if I do horizontal, do that. That's funny. Okay. Anyway, so now I'm sending it at 802, and then it says that my phone, just so I know, is at 1.3. Great. Let's go over into Max and see if we're receiving that. So what did we just say? We said port 8002. So let's say new UDP receive 8002. Let's take a little message number and see what we got. We got Bill and we got Fred. Right? So it's super easy to use. What's great about this is that it's just like multi-touch, right? So you already have an interface that's easier to use than just a mouse click, right? It has a lot of ones that are already built to start off with, and a lot of these you'd rather use probably on an iPad, but this is pretty complicated, right? You can't see this 1 second, right? So it has a bunch of interfaces that are built for DJs and stuff, right? It has different pages, right? And they already have OSC, right? They're sending it out, and it's just on different channels, right? And all you have to do is route out this different data and separate it out. It's been packaged together to go over the network, and now it's separate it out. So that is an object called route. And it's a dynamic object. The more things I tell it to route, the more outlets it has, right? So we're going to route out Bill and Fred from here. And because I put two things here, it has one that says, it's probably too small for you to see, it says output if matches Bill, output if matches Fred, output if it matches none. All right? And so now if I do another two messages, we'll see that we no longer see those URLs. We just see the essential numbers that we want. Just getting ones, zeros, and just getting these float numbers. Okay? All at the same time, the Unreal is still rendering for us. So I can now take my Fred number and scale it. And now I have Fred on a slider. Dialing in these settings right there. It's extremely powerful stuff. And like with here again, without stopping the rendering, I'm like, well, the overall thing needs to be just brighter. Right? So now it's going to be twice as bright. And then you see these inlets right here. We can dynamically change those things as well. So I can put in a number, connect it to, oops, not that, a number. We're running out of a little space. Connect it to here, and I'm going to overwrite what the high value is. So instead of saying, so I can say now 20,000, and that's now overwriting that number in there. It's going to be even twice as bright. 100,000, and it's even brighter. 1,000,000 sharks with lasers on their heads, right? So so now we're doing that. That's cool. What else should we do? So I think that we should now talk to this guy. All right. So what I have here is a standard issue box fan and a thing called a power switch tail. I'm going to open this up on like Amazon. They're like $40, something like that. Actually, let me give you this URL on this wonderful channel that's already been provided, and then Amazon. And then it's called a power switch tail. It's a relay. Here again, instant installation right here. So it's a relay. It's about $40. I've seen them much cheaper before, but never more expensive than that. My poor computer is like, yeah, I know that you can keep Unreal running, but can you please stop for a second? Like, dude, I thought you bought the PC, man. I thought you were going to do the PC for this stuff. Anyway, so here you go, power switch tail. And so what this is it takes power, like your 5 volts, and it takes there's 3 channels there. Then there's your input, and then you have your ground. You don't really need to use the ground because it's already a grounded plug, right? And you put your appliance on this side. Your appliance is already on, and it turns it off and on. There's 2 kinds of power switch tails. There's an already closed and an already open. Open meaning the circuit. If it's an open circuit, that means that it can't complete the circuit and it's off, right? And then if it's a closed circuit, that means it's already on. And so you make a decision when you buy these. You can also resolder them as well, whether you want your things to always be off or you want things to always be on. It'd better be easier to make sure that you're consistent with, like, if you're doing installation where the fan turns on only like once every 10 minutes, you want it to always be off, and you're just going to turn it on occasionally. If it was always on, you're turning it off, then to turn it back on, then like if the power went out or something, all your appliances are going to turn on again. Yeah. This is, you can use a 555 timer. You can use all sorts of stuff. We just want to be able to connect it over serial communication from Macs. But yeah, it's just taking any 5-volt pulse over that wire. You can maybe, if you like get enough static friction, can light it with your fingers. Who knows? If it sends out a voltage, then you could use it. Yeah, yeah. So like in the morning, sometimes you wake up and you're like, man, like I need coffee, but I need to turn the coffee thing on to get the coffee. Like, oh, I can just turn it on from your phone, and then it's heated up for you, ready to go, right? So what I'm going to do is show you guys how to use the Arduino to run this. So basically, my Arduino is plugged into my computer, and I'm just sending. I have two connections. One to the 5 volt that's sending the power in, and then the other one is to pin number 13, otherwise known as the LED pin. It's the way you can actually visually see things happening on your Arduino. Do I know how to program Arduino? No, I don't know how to program Arduino. So what we're going to do is not know how to program Arduino together. So I'm going to open it up. Here again, free for you guys too. The IDE is free.
You can have a servo motor stuck near the switch of the fan. And switches the fan.
Yeah,
So you don't want to spend $40.
yeah. You can have just a relay. You can make
Yeah.
these for very cheap. So these could be all sorts of things. I'm just choosing this one because there's a big bang for your buck kind of
Yeah, this is
thing. So like the piece tree that we installed is like 6 of these, and it's on 3 heaters, a fan, and 2 or 3 scent machines. The scent machines are these compressed air things that are sending out through a chamber. Actually, here's tree right here. So right, it's got some variables for the heaters and the fan, and I guess this is the version without the scent machine. And then basically we have these different cases. So at one part in the installation, we want to turn on the heaters and then wait 20 seconds and then turn off the heaters. So if I send the value 49 to my Arduino, then it does that. This is a case where if we send 50, it turns on the heaters, and then 48 seconds later it turns off. So you can do this case if you want to, which is a really smart way of doing this kind of episodic kind of stuff. I haven't programmed anything. I'm just reading, right? So in Arduino there is a bunch of examples. We're going to do communication, and we're going to do a dimmer. And if you guys know that your new full-time faculty member, little Scott Fitzgerald, there he is. This is his contribution to the Arduino library. Him and Tom Igo, who teaches physical computing over at ITP. And what this is what Scott uses is Pure Data and MaxMSP. Not only do we have the Arduino code, but at the bottom here, we have a bunch of gobbledygook. And it says, this is a Max Patcher. If I go back over here, copy that, and go over to Max, and we say, new from my clipboard, like magic, there we go. We have a little Max Patch that can then talk to a Arduino. Cool. So I didn't code anything there. And what we're going to do is basically we need to see what our board is. And so I'm going to turn it on. And I want to make sure that I'm checking which port. So over here, it says that I need to be using port C. I'm going to change that real quick right here. Port C. Port C. That's just where, just warming up. And I need to now put the code onto the Arduino. I'm going to do 2 quick switches to this, okay? This is built for a dimmer, and we're just using it as a button, okay? So I'm going to put in a toggle. Right? We just want to send a 0 or a 1, not a 0 to 255, okay? So my pin, I'm actually using 13. And I'm not doing an analog, I'm doing a digital. Up, there it goes. right? That's just, and so by default it's on, right? You got the good seat, right? So let's turn this sucker off. All right, so I'm just going to send in the clowns. Turn it off. Right? So I want this stuff, and I'm going to take it over to my other patch. Don't need this anymore. Take it over here. Make a little more space. There we go. Turn it on. Turn it off. There we go. What do we have over here? Oh, we got Bill and Fred. And Bill was sending me zeros and ones. What is this? A 0 and a 1. So now I'm using my phone. So what's cool about this is that, okay, so the limitation of the TouchOSC is that it sends only to one source. So whenever I do an installation that has like 3 VR pieces, I want to keep it synchronized. I send it to one that's the show controller, and then it sends out the signal to a bunch of computers. So my thing for you guys is, first of all, I'm going to take this goop right here, garbly goop. I'm going to copy compressed, and then I can send it to Slack. And everyone who has taken the time to download Max can now have this patch. And what's fun about this now is that does anyone have Max? Does anyone feel comfortable with Max? Anyone have it open? Anyone? No one? Do you have Max? So I'm gonna send you a patch really quick, okay? I'm gonna make a patch real quick, okay? I'm gonna send we're gonna make a new one real quick, and it's gonna be UDP send my IP address 113. And we're going to do port 8002. And we're going to do a toggle. And we're going to send it on Bill. Okay? And, all right. I'm going to now take this, copy compressed. If anyone has Max, you can use this as well. So all you have to do is highlight it, copy it, and then say new from clipboard. Just what I have highlighted right here, from begin to end. And then you go over here to Max and you say file, new from clipboard. And it's going to make this little patch right here. You guys want to play the fan? Natalie, are you doing it? Yeah. Hmm? Are you on the MoCap? Sorry, you're in the MoCap 5G network. I might have asked people to do that when I was, it's Unicycle 320 is the password. Unicycle 320. I didn't make the password. That's just what's like on the bottom of the router. It's like Unicycle 320. There you go. You're controlling it. So when I teach Luke's like Steinhardt classes, you know, we when I teach Luke Steinhardt's class, like what we do is we're like, oh, we're doing an 8-channel installation. I'm like, well, we got 13 laptops here right now. Each one of these is its own stereo sound source. I have a 13-channel installation right here, ready to go. All I have to do is get everyone's IP addresses and just send out the data to everyone's computer. You guys all receive it, and you could be different instruments, right? And then if you scale your frequencies differently, then you can have harmonies and stuff like that. And it's all coming from. And so I'll parade around like I'm the Pied Piper, but I'm just doing for my phone. All right. All right. So we've kind of seen the power of all that. I do want to, all the while, Unreal is rendering in the background. I do want to go quickly. I meant to do this one earlier. We were talking about MIDI. I just want to show you real quick that MIDI is also very useful in for show control and for using these installations as well. And oftentimes, especially before there was a VR editor, I was using these boards to really dial in settings. You'd be in VR, but you have a really tactile thing that you can actually scale something or position something to the actual value that you want it. And Max is also built for MIDI as well. This is like a $20 Korg Nano control. It fits the perfect size of like a your laptop or whatever. And this has been to hell and back and served me very well. I just make like a new object and I say it's CTLN, it's control N, and I'm going to see what that sends out, and I'm going to turn a knob, 0 to 127. This one, 0 to 127. This one, 0 to 127. So I need to also do routing, right? And so each of these knobs has its own number, and that information is coming out from the second outlet, right? And so we see that this one is 21 and this one is 20. All right? So I can give this control object the argument, and see it took away one of the outlets now because it doesn't need to feed the channel. There we go. There we go. So it's really, this is also a really useful thing for like really dialing in settings. So what I had a problem where I did this mocap dance party for Jose Cuervo for Day of the Dead, and we had mocap dancers that were in these inertial mocap suits that were dressed like skeletons, but they're also driving projections of skeletons. The problem is that the motion capture avatars were drifting, and they drift off frame. And so what I did was I had this in my backpack, and I quickly assigned these values to X and Y, and I was able to continually dial them in for 2 hours while the performance was happening to keep them on that center point, because I couldn't stop Unreal from rendering because it was live and there was 300 people there. So I had to do it over MIDI and just fine tune it in. And there we go. It's on channel. So there's channel 21, only coming that one, and there's channel 20, only coming in there. And then MIDI can be OSC, just as easy as that, right? This can also, if we weren't running out of time, this could also be setting my light intensity inside of Unreal. In fact, it's not that much of an issue to do that, right? Because we're still rendering this light over here. We just need to connect this one, scale it, so it's new, scale, it's from 0 to 127 to 0 to 10,000. There to there, and there to there. No big deal. And now I'm controlling the light with this controller. And it's so much smoother than doing it with a mouse too. You really have a lot better control with sliders and knobs. Right? That's a little quick thing on MIDI for you. There's like MIDI keyboards and all sorts of stuff. I used a big Ableton board before and able to do all sorts of stuff with it. So what we haven't done yet is all the way from, well, we've gone all the way into Unreal now. It's time to go out of Unreal. All right. So last year at Tribeca, oh, by the way, Tribeca tickets went on sale today. Maybe you guys can like volunteer or something, get it for free. But it has Storyscapes, which is going to be a whole bunch of VR experiences. There's a bunch of NYU projects there. I'll be there. You know, I can't do that, but I get myself in for free. But you know, definitely try to go see it. There's gonna be a lot of great stuff. Last year, there's a piece called "Draw Me Close." I might have mentioned this. It's where they had the woman who's wearing the mocap suit, and she was your mother, and you were a 5-year-old kid. You went home to see your mother, and the first thing she did was she you walk in and she hugs you. So you get hugged by your mother in VR, and people were like bawling about it. But at one point, like she like the room is stuffy or whatever, and she asks you to go over and open up a window. You go over to you know where the VR window is, and it's a physical window, and you raise the one, and they both raise together. That's extremely compelling matching between the virtual and the physical, right? And then when the window opened, a fan turned on, and then you got the cool breeze, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to create a scenario where we are in Unreal. We go to an edge of a cliff, and our fan turns on. Okay. So I'm going to finally let Unreal stop rendering for a second, and I'm going to add in the ability to not just receive OSC, I'm going to send it. Here's our cliff right here, all right? And here's just like another thing, just so I can see where everything is. Great, so I'm going to walk between these two objects, and I will be at the edge of the cliff. Trigger box. Good old trigger box. Make it the whole length of the cliff. There we go. And I'm going to say on actor begin overlap. So when I go in, begin overlap, I want to turn on, and when I leave, it's going to turn back off, right? When I leave the cliff. And what we're going to do is we're going to send OSC. Send OSC. And here's the whole stuff we've been seeing before. We know about channels, we know about data, we know about execution pins. So I'm going to send OSC on the channel Bill. Oops. Okay, so we got two bills. And what I'm going to do is when I end, I'm going to push a bool. And because of the way this is programmed, actually giving it a 1 is being off, I believe. What do we have right now? We have a 1 is off. So we're going to send it a 1 to be off and a 0 to be on. Right? So the idea is we're on a hike, we get to a vista, we want to see something, and then when we get to the edge, we feel the wind in our hair, or in our face, or on our arms, or whatever. All right? So let's review the fact that we're sending on port 8001. Right? We set that up down here. 8001 on my local computer. Totally. Yeah, I would stick around 7,000 and 9,000 though, because there's a lot of applications there's a lot of ports being used on a computer, and those ports from 7,000 9,000 are able to be used for us. They're usually clear. Yeah. And then you can see that from here, like if this is my show controlling computer, I can then send OSC to a bunch of other computers as well, straight from my Unreal as well. Or I can use Max as the central hub. Eventually, Max will be, you don't need it. Like there is Arduino plugins for Unreal as well, and we can go directly into there. It's just like a prototyping tool, and it just works really well for me. What's funny is like all the pieces I've ever made, and like the one I'm putting in the Oculus store this week, if somebody knew what port and what the addresses were, they can completely mess around with my project. And I like the idea that they're there, and that if I like walk by somebody doing a piece, that I could just use my phone and just like screw around with their experience. You know, it's kind of funny to me. But you know, I don't need them for right now. We just need to remember that we're doing it over Oath 8001. So let's bring back Max, and let's just change this real quick to 8,000. Actually, let's just change this one. That might be easier to 8,002. Great. All right, who thinks it's going to work? No one. Not a single person thinks this is going to work. Okay. I haven't proven anything to you guys. All right. Hiking exhausted. Oh, there's the vista. So I always do this class before we do the presentations for the finals, because I want you guys to know that there's more that you can be doing than just, you know, landscapes and hand controllers like that. There's a whole other physical world out there this could be, you know, scent machines and heaters and, you know, all sorts of other stuff. So, and this was a lot, but you know, none of it was, if you break it down, nothing was too complicated. Everything kind of made sense, and I copied and pasted most of it. So, there you go. That's how you do the stuff. And like literally, like Box fans are like the best. So you know, I know this was a lot, but if anyone has any questions that was unclear, but basically we have, you know, this is a demo. If you guys choose a sensor or some sort of input or some sort of device you want to use, we haven't even talked about haptics yet. We're going to do that a little bit later. You can obviously have vibrating floors, you know, and I think we've talked about bass transducers and stuff like that. So that's also possible. Sign up for office hours, and we'll actually break down what you want to do, and we'll figure it out. I have no one signed up for office hours tomorrow, so the other IDM students have been signing up for my office hours mostly for the entire semester. So feel free to dive in. If you want to run your ideas for your finals past me, if you want me to brainstorm with you, just sign up for the office hours from the syllabus, and I'm here from like noon to 3 or something like that, and we can hang out. We'll just be in the mocap room using the big computer. All right. Anyone have any questions right now?
So you have an Arduino is not
No, Arduino is, but Max is more visual. I think Max. I do my taxes in Max. Like Max does so many things. Yeah, of course. Yeah, we mean that could be office hours as well. You know, but what I wanted to show you is I was just copying and pasting and just adding values from there. So there's the main functionality is there without even having a deep understanding of it at all. But it is an extremely powerful tool for connecting our computers together, our phones, and Arduinos, stuff like that. Hooking up a printer to a xylophone or whatever. You know, Max can pull it off.
in the Arduino code itself you can do it directly in the Arduino.
Yeah, it's called UE4 Arduino, and it's. I'll just go ahead and get that for you right now.
I thought you could do it in the Arduino code, but you could specify a code and by programming
Well,
in Arduino.
Arduino doesn't do OSC; it only does serial.
Yeah. Oh.
So if you had like a Yoon,
Yeah.
you might be able to do it. And there's WebSocket plugins for Unreal as well.
Yes, you will go.
All right, so here's your Arduino if you just want to go straight in there. And it has documentation of how to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
So like Tree is a max patch, a giant max patch.
Mhm.
But when we're putting it into Steam later on in the summer, I'll make it all native blueprints. So there's no, we're not using any. And then what we do is we've taken all these relays and we've made a giant like guitar pedal, and it's going to be labeled fan, heater, and then we'll sell those. You can download the experience for free, and then you take your own fans at home and you can plug them in, and then you get the experiential installation for that piece. So there's Arduino if you want to, and if somebody wants to do WebSockets, let me know. I have to find that one. I forget where it is. Cool.